Welcome, everybody. It is another edition of the Shopo Hour. Delighted that you're with us on this Aloha Monday morning. And we have Brother Nick, Brother Steve, Brother Mark in studio today. I want to say aloha to all three gentlemen and a very good morning.
Morning, Rick.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Nick.
Happy Monday.
Oh, I guess I should probably turn the switch on yours.
Yeah, it'll be nice.
You try again.
Morning, happy Monday.
There we go.
Okay, good.
It's been a heck of a week since we last saw each other, but anybody have a favorite in the NFL? Nick's going, nah.
No.
Well, negative.
I'll say Kansas City.
Because it's your favorite song?
No, just yeah.
Kansas
I'm going
City.
to Kansas City. Yeah,
There we go.
And there we go. So much for sports. talk.
Closest geographically to Chicago. How's that?
All right, there we go. There we go. Are we ever going to get back without having to buy a ticket? The Bears ever going to?
You need Refrigerator Perry back.
Well,
Not to the glory of the '85. I'll tell you that was a once in a lifetime.
Yeah, it was. Brother Nick, could you start us off, please, with description of Shopo and why we're all here together today?
you bet. Thanks. Again, my name is Nick Schlepak. I'm the Honolulu chapter chair for Shopo and a police officer in Honolulu Police Department. Been with the union for about 10 years, and the union is the advocate for police officers for the rank of lieutenant and below.
All right, absolutely so. Brother Steve, why do we get together?
Yeah, Rick, always happy and grateful to be here with you and your listeners. Steve Keogh, Vice President of Shopo, Patrol Sergeant with Honolulu PD, 17 years on the job. It's an opportunity, Rick, thanks to you for giving us the platform to come and just have this dialogue between the community and the officers that wear the uniform. We thought it was very important that the communities, that the men and women that put the uniform on serve, have an opportunity to hear firsthand what's going on with us. We can talk about issues that are top of mind relating to public safety and law enforcement, and really have robust discussion to clear up any possible misconceptions about things, and really give you an opportunity as the host to take the show wherever it goes with those topics. And we just provide our thoughts, and hopefully at the end of the hour, people feel more connected with the different county police departments in the state.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. Brother Mark?
Morning, Rick. Steve. How's it going over here?
Good to see you,
Nick,
brother.
Howdy, sir.
happy Monday. I'm retired major, Honolulu Police Department, 31 and a half years. My last assignment was Waikiki. Mm-hmm. And as you know, Rick, prior to me retiring, we'd get together here and there, and I say, Rick, I got to come on your show. I got to give the other half. I got to give the other side of the story, because it's just so one-sided out there with these news organizations. So, we thank you for giving us this platform to tell our side of the story. So that's why we're here.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Could you hold his hands
okay.
behind his back?
Here we go.
Incidentally,
Do you have cuffs? Or?
I did not hear the drumming when I replayed this last, so I'm going to cuff my hands, okay?
Well,
Zip tie my hands today, okay?
We'll take a survey. No, just kidding. We're going to cover a lot of ground today. There's so many stories that are top of mind, and we have a few minutes just to get your initial thoughts and reactions. But, of course, the Tyre Nichols case, Memphis PD, and what's transpired. Who'd like to start off with thoughts and reactions? Mark?
Well, I think we could all agree, and I don't think anybody agrees that what happened over there was condoned. I mean, it was disgusting what happened. And, 5 police officers don't represent the hundreds of thousands that are employed in this country. So, yeah, I mean, those 5 guys, they're going to go to jail. They're going to go to jail for a very long time, whether it be on state or federal charges, right? And it's just, with our training, we just drill into these new recruits and even guys that are still on the road. It's just like, watch out for each other. If you see guys are a little hot, pull them off. Take them out of the situation. But it's just, we just drill into these people. Is going to jail or losing your family, is it worth it? It's not worth it. So I think we all agree that it was just a terrible, terrible thing, and that's not a representation of police officers in this nation. Mm-hmm. However, this is the thing I don't like. and it's been a norm within the last, I guess, since Obama's been in. The rioting, there is not one person, whether it be any type of news outlet, that's condoning this. We all agree that this is a heinous crime would happen. Do we still need to block streets and stop people from going to work? And what do you guys want? Let these guys are going to go to jail for a very, very, very long time. So let's knock it off with the crazy rioting and all that. All right. You have your right to your opinion, but do we need to block streets? And is this a common norm of rioting in the streets and all this crap? So that I don't agree with. I agree that it's a bad thing that happened, but let's get back to normalcy and let's stop the rioting.
Steve.
Rick, we could probably do a whole show on this. It is a horrific tragedy in so many aspects. What you saw on the different videos was unfortunately 5 law enforcement officers losing control of their emotions, not following a use of force continuum, taking it way too far, causing catastrophic physical injury to someone they were trying to take into custody. Their actions, as Mark said, they're going to be held accountable for that. They're going to get their day in court. As a police officer, as a police supervisor, when I saw the videotape, I was horrified like everybody else, but I realized there was a breakdown in several things. There's a breakdown in training. The use of force continuum was out the window. To share with your listeners, when officers deliver strikes to the head or the face, those should only be done in a life or death situation. And in that video, that wasn't shown. We're assuming that these officers had the training to know the use of force continuum, whatever Memphis PD puts out. Mark stated it on the head. This is not how law enforcement professionals conduct themselves on the regular. The tragedy here is this. Because of the actions of those 5 officers, you create now a ripple effect. It's going to be harder for all the men and women on Memphis PD to come to work. It's going to be harder for law enforcement nationwide to do the job. I'm going to tell you why. And it goes to morale. It's going to go to recruitment. It's that event starts a ripple effect. Law enforcement agencies need community support. If you don't have community support as a law enforcement agency, the morale goes down. When the morale goes down, production and effectiveness goes down. We've said many times on your show that the body camera and cameras don't always tell the full story. And we stand by that. However, the cameras in this specific situation showed us in law enforcement that a use of force continuum was not followed, and that force was excessive based upon the level of the resistance of the individual they were trying to take into custody. I'm trying to just be basic here. It's a very emotional time for many people. It's a tragedy on so many levels. It's going to be harder to do police work. Now we have to talk about rebuilding community trust. You're going to have officers now that may not want to take individuals into custody because of force, because they don't want to get labeled. And it's just a horrific situation. We don't know these 5 officers. We know they made a terrible mistake in that video that we saw. I was thinking, what does Memphis PD do? The victim here is absolutely Tyre and his family, but if you think about the larger picture, there's going to be multiple victims. The city's going to get sued, and they're going to have to pay. The families of the officers are going to be victims because they're going to have to live with the shame of what those men did, and then they're going to get sued civilly. So you're going to have people affected by this for a long time to come, Rick, and it's just tragic. It really is. You have to ask yourself, were these 5 guys, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be long-winded. As a street cop, this seemed personal. This almost appeared like a beating rather than a taking them into custody. I don't know if they had previous contact with this guy. I know he was a FedEx employee without a criminal record, but this to me seemed too personal. It seemed like all hell, all things just went out the window, and it was a personal attack, repeated strikes to the head. You had pepper spray, then you had a baton, then you had repeated kicks to the head, then you had closed fist strikes to the head 5 times. It was just, these 5 officers lost control, and now, as Mark said, they're going to have to pay the consequences. But Nick, sorry, I didn't mean to talk too long, Rick. It's a very, very tragic situation. But then you have to ask yourself, the officers here are not the victims, but you have to ask yourself, how far in the red were they operating? What were their levels of stress at? Where was Memphis PD and training them and looking, and where was the awareness that maybe these officers were going down a road where they were just too stressed? That Scorpion unit, they were technically dealing with the worst of the worst in the worst of the worst neighborhood. I'm not condoning anything they did, but for growing as a community and for that agency, they have to ask themselves, how did these 5 officers get to the point where they lost control? Did we fail them? What did we not give them to make them go down this road? Where was the supervisor? I didn't see any supervisor on scene during this. Where was the sergeant? Where was the lieutenant? I realize it's a specialized unit, but that sergeant, where was that supervisor there to regulate this? There was just, for your listeners, there was such a breakdown in how law enforcement professionals conduct the business that we do. It was evident, I think, to any police officer watching that there was a breakdown. And it goes to officers' mental health, officers' mental stability. What programs are in place for officers? Where was the early recognition? You're telling me these 5 guys just in one day got to that level of anger and rage that just happened? They came to roll call, they hit the streets, they got a cup of coffee, and then suddenly they turned into this powder keg? No, Rick. There had been something brewing with this group for a long time, and it probably went unnoticed and unrecognized. And that's tragic.
Understand.
Yeah.
And I want to get to Nick in a moment.
Sure.
But I would submit what the other side of the opinion is. Come on. Anybody, even a ranking amateur citizen, understands that the continuation of that beating may have been fueled by rage, but we have a level of expectation, whether it's a course you take or whether it's mentoring or whatever it might be. No one is going to accept, I believe, the notion that these 5 officers did not know what they were doing to the extent that they were doing it. Mm-hmm. When this kid, 29 years old, I'm not going to do anything to personify anything because I don't know. I've just seen what everybody else has seen. But when this young man is calling out for his mom, for crying out loud, I mean, and then I think to address your point, when he was initially pepper sprayed when he was on the ground, he wrestled and got out of custody and ran. I think that could have been that spark that went, oh yeah, here we go. And just a continuation. The Scorpion detail was immediately canceled. And there was a swift and sure reply and response, not only from the department, but also, believe it or not, media, New York Times of all publications, that cited, in this particular case, it was swift, it was sure, the response, the reaction, and the consequences. It was like bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. And so I hope people are recognizing that elements that do wrong face consequence, and there is an honest reevaluation of how we do business to make sure it doesn't happen again. Last part. Nobody's perfect. And we cannot expect any perfection out of any individual. But we have to be expected that the individuals in those positions act as professional as possible, and that we do support, because Mark was right out of the gate. This does not define in any way, shape, or form the men and women who serve. I'll take a break later. I want to give you a chance, Steve, before I turn to Nick.
No, Rick, I think you have very insightful comments. I agree with them. You have police. I refer to law enforcement officers as police professionals. Mm-hmm. And when you say the term professional, there's an expectation for a level of conduct, knowledge, intellect, and how you do your profession. These 5 officers failed themselves. They failed the community. They failed their agency. They failed in every way imaginable. They lost control of their emotions. They did not follow in our protocol the use of force continuum, mm-hmm. and there's going to be consequences for that. It's unfortunate that their actions are now going to cause the law enforcement profession throughout our country to again have to reassure the communities that what happened in Memphis is something that's not even close to what happens on the regular basis, Rick. But you're right.
Brother Nick, we have a few minutes before the bottom of the hour. I'd love to get your take and your thoughts too.
Well, yeah, thank you. Wow, what an interesting topic, and I think we all knew that this was going to be the first thing we spoke about today when we came in the room. But I think every police officer feels that no matter how good an interaction goes with the community or with the public or with the suspect, no matter how well things go by the book, by the numbers, that there's always room for improvement. Within Shopo itself, we've had a measure of members, have an opinion on this situation, that it went negatively, and there are people within our organization that are saying, maybe we ought to give this the benefit of the doubt, maybe we ought to wait for more information to come out, maybe we ought to go into what happened before this all came out. Like Steve said, maybe there's something before the traffic stop that we don't even know about. I think that's being fair to a certain extent, but at the same time, I also think that anybody that watches that footage, police officer or not, can look at it and say, you know what, there's some things there that should have been done a lot better. Okay, at the end of the day, for me personally, I'm curious to see a few different things. I'd like to know what their use of force policy looks like. I'd like to know what their duty to intervene policy looks like. I'd like to know what their crime scene responsibility, investigation responsibility policy looks like. I'd like to know what regulations they have in play for giving medical aid to a suspect or a civilian when it's necessary. Those are all really big questions that are on my mind with regards to what happened there. And just to touch base on the supervisor thing, that was the one question that was in my mind when I watched that footage when it came out on CNN, released on time, first time for everybody to see it, was where are the stripes? Where are the bars? Who is controlling this situation? Why is it that there's nobody there managing that scene? That's an important question to take into consideration. And, it's my understanding that maybe Memphis does have staffing issues. Maybe the chief of police in Memphis came out and said something to the effect of, we do have span of control issues. That is to say that we don't have enough supervisors, personnel-wise, to manage all of the assets we have in the field. That's a huge consideration to take into account anywhere, no matter where you're working. One could say theoretically that the Honolulu Police Department has a span of control issue as well when it comes to supervisors. We're 392 officers short. Right now we have between 20 and 30 lieutenants positions that are unfilled, between 40 and 50 sergeants positions that are unfilled, and between 20 and 30 detective positions that are unfilled out of 392. So that's a decent chunk, okay? You have to have effective control of the personnel out there in situations like that. Otherwise, things fall apart. Things just go wrong.
And there we have it. We're at 7:28. Steve?
I was just going to say, Nick made outstanding points. The police administrators from Memphis PD, the top leadership, they have to take a serious look in the mirror and ask themselves if, to Nick's point, their training, their policies, their leadership, it's a failure for those 5 officers to do what they did. And I'm not saying that Memphis PD leadership hasn't taken accountability. It's a failure all the way up to the top. Make no mistake about it. Those 5 officers were wrong, to put it mildly. But their inability to do their job professionally is actually a reflection all the way up to the chain to the number 1 female chief that we heard was very quick to speak out, and I commend her for that. But what I didn't hear is anything from her, unless I'm missing something, taking accountability that she needs to look at what she's giving her people, policies, procedures, that sort of thing.
Well put. Mark, final thought. Oh,
Two things with this.
okay.
Two things with this. Number one, I said the same as Nick. Where the hell is the supervision on scene? Supervisors are huge when it comes to these scenes. And there's a lot of officers off at that scene. The supervisor should have been there to control things. Number two, do not lower your standards for people.
Touch your mic. Yeah, thanks. Okay.
All right. So do we get the last one?
Do not lower your
Do
standards.
not lower standards people coming in. A couple things, too. I disagree with getting rid of the Scorpion unit. I disagree with it. Those small units really help deter crime a lot, okay? So look at it, see what went wrong, improve it, but don't get rid of it. That's not doing the people, the public justice out there. You still need these units, right? And then no one hates bad cops more than good cops. Let the people out there know that, you know? And one other thing I got to bring up. Mm-hmm. All these guys, right? They cast a dark shadow on all good officers throughout this nation. Just remember that. So
there we go. We have some folks that are online. We'll take our bottom of the hour break and return with the Shopo Hour. Delighted that you are with us here this morning on this Monday. So folks online, stand by. We'll be right with you. With the brothers in studio, Mark, Steve, and Nick, we're taking your calls. And Sean here in Honolulu, thank you very much for your patience, Sean, and welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning, all. My comment in no way is in support of what the officers did, but when I watched the videos, my first thought was, why is he resisting? And I don't hear anyone talking about that. I don't care what the situation is. I don't think it's a good idea to resist or argue with the police when in a traffic stop. I'll take your comments off the air. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean, for your commentary, and to the gentleman in studio who'd like to lead us off.
Well, okay, he's resisting, but he's not resisting enough for a beating like that, you know? Like Steve alluded to before, there's a use of force continuum to use, not to kick and punch him and beat him to death. So, I mean, come on, let's be real about this.
I appreciate the caller's participation. I think he's spot on. You shouldn't resist the police. The only thing that I would add to his observation is that officers are trained to use force that is at the same level or higher than the resistance that the person they're trying to take into custody is showing. In that video, the level of force, the level of resistance that Tyre was possibly doing, if you're a police professional, you look at that video, you have to say, are baton strikes appropriate? Are kicks to the head appropriate? I'm not trying to be dramatic when I say this. I'm just stating facts of what the officers did at the scene when they were trying to take him into custody. You have to use force that's appropriate for the level of resistance that the offender in that situation is applying. And in this case, as police officers looking at that, it was excessive. So should you resist the police? Absolutely not. That's a smart thing. And did he resist? Yeah, he ran down the street. He ran away. But did he have a weapon? Did he have great physical size and strength? Did he have some type of specialized training? All that goes into effect when an officer, again, needs to use force to take someone into custody.
Brother Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. It's like I said earlier, every police encounter has room for improvement. Obviously, this one did as well. But I think you do have a point, both from an officer point of view and from a civilian point of view. If there is to be a police interaction, it really does help the situation if compliance is there. Of course, it also helps if the officers are coming into the situation mentally clear, physically clear, coordinated, on point, and ready to address the situation in a professional manner.
We appreciate the call, Sean. Thank you so very much for joining us. at 521-8383. I'd like to go over to Ruth, who's joining us in Kapolei, 7:40 in the morning. Ruth, good morning to you.
Good morning. I am Neighborhood Security Watch in District 8, and I just wanted to bring up 5 officers that we dearly love. You've been talking about 5 bad ones, but these 5 are awesome. Sonny, Roland, Roxanne, Vern, and Fumi. We love them so much. They are fantastic officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth, very much. Previous to our coming on today, I was encouraging folks to give us a call. Didn't say what the topics were, just to say this is an opportunity where you can talk firsthand, directly, with men and women that are on the streets wearing the uniform, protecting, responding, serving, and dedicating themselves every day to their mission, to their job. And I said, it doesn't always have to be a critical call. We'll take those, of course. We absolutely. But if you have a moment, think of anything positive and share it, because talk about underreported stories. That's probably at the top of my list of underreported stories in regard to our Honolulu Police Department, and I would dare say statewide as well. So, Ruth, thank you very much for that call. 7:41 in the morning, News Radio. I know we had some conversation off air. I'll turn it over. If you'd like to share anything that you were discussing off air, would like to bring it here, and I'll just leave it open once again.
Sure. Rick, if we could just go back to the Scorpion unit.
Sure.
What we were talking with off air that we probably want to share with the listeners is that community probably needs a unit like that, without question. Memphis is a rough city, and plainclothes units, as the boys will chime in here in a minute, provide a valuable resource to the community. You're going to want to retrain personnel, get new personnel, but I think to disband a unit like that has a purpose and a focus is a knee-jerk reaction and is only going to harm those individuals that live in the community. I'll turn it over to Nick or Mark.
Yeah, we do have another call, but if a quick comment from either. Go to the call? Okay.
Yeah, go to call.
All right.
We could cover
Let's
this
do that.
later.
521-8383. Please join us. And Steve out in Pearl City is next. Steve, you're on the Shopo Hour. Good morning.
Oh, hi. Good morning. I just wanted to make a comment on that this scenario with Tyre, this guy. And anyway, I didn't see no video, nothing. I haven't been watching. But anyway, my thought was, I've had interactions with HPD, but it wasn't, not in a criminal type scenario, but traffic. And hey, if you just follow what they say, you do what you're supposed to do, you ain't gonna have no trouble. I never had a interaction where an officer, grabbed me by the neck or something, or threw me on the ground, or I just hand them my the information they need, and no problem, but seem like a lot of these guys who get into this situation where they get beat up or killed or something is because they don't cooperate. They kind of cause a lot of this for themselves, and this kind of problem.
I'm going to give you a chance to clarify, because the inference of what you're saying is that because of the actions of Tyre Nichols, that's the reason why he died.
Well, I didn't really see everything that happened. All I know is, all I'm saying is that, when you get stopped by the police, do what they say. Within reason. If they're telling you to lick the toilet bowl or something, forget about it. But if they ask for your ID, they say spread eagle or whatever, or show.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much. I appreciate the call and the commentary. I want to give some time over to the fellas.
Okay, so I think what Steve's getting at is because of Tyre's actions, because he died. No, I think he's getting at if you just cooperate, a lot of these interactions will end mostly peacefully if you just cooperate with the police. But a lot of people don't, and that's why we're trained. That's why we have a use of force continuum. We're not there just going ballistic on people like these Memphis guys. So just a lot of these situations was because of these guys that are resisting, and we're used to it.
No, and we appreciate Steve's participation on the show, Rick, obviously, but this is one of those things, Steve, that I would encourage you just to educate yourself. Take a look at that video. Take a look at the video. We appreciate the feedback from you. I agree. Be compliant when you work with the police. It's only going to be to your benefit. It's good for us as officers too, because then we can we're gonna feel more comfortable in the people that we're interacting with. But in this specific situation, Steve, officers lost control of their emotions, and it's a pretty dark situation.
Appreciate that, Steve, very much. Nick?
Oh, yes, thank you. So, Ruth, thank you for calling in and saying those nice comments about those 5 officers out in District 8. That was very nice of you to do. And then to Steve's point, the caller, excuse me.
Yes.
You have a point there. I mean, officers typically, the situations they walk into are set for them when they get there, and a lot of that has to do with how the person driving the car is reacting during the traffic stop, or how the people that they have to encounter in the argument are reacting, what that demeanor is. So it's a action reaction kind of thing often. And again, if an officer is calm and collected, has good support from the community, has good support from its department and its personnel, you have enough staffing out there, you have enough good supervision, most often you're going to see that the officer is coming into the situation correctly from the right point of view.
It is already 7:47 in the morning. We go to Mililani, and that's where Bob is on board with us. And Bob, I want to thank you for your call, and good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'd just like to make a quick comment. My son is an officer in the department, stationed out in District 5, Day Watch. I've met many officers throughout the years my son been in, which is almost 8. I've met some outstanding officers, just like you folks, they're like anybody else. They want to get home after their job. And I just want to commend all the men and women who serve with HPD. You guys have a great day.
Bob, thank you very much. You have a great day as well. And let me go ahead and take this break. We'll have a response. We'll continue with the conversation. This is the Shopo Hour, featuring Mark and Steve and Nick and Lovey Bobby. And we'll hopefully see you soon. Wishing you all the best. But in the meantime, short break, and then we return. It's 7:48.
KHVH traffic.
Welcome back. It is the Shopo Hour, and what an hour it has become with our gentlemen in studio, brothers Mark and Steve and Nick, and your telephone calls at 521-8383. Let's head out to Neo Valley, and that's where Kirk is online. Kirk, I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for your call, Kirk, and a very good morning.
Hey, good morning to all of you. First, in a few months, we'll be lighting New Valley blue in May with the Police Week.
Yep.
But 2 questions, if I may. So, with that Memphis incident, what the Shopo's advocacy and discussions with the chief, what has there been to really take a look at, okay, what are we doing now? Not, have to wait for that lesson to arrive here in Honolulu. And the second thing is there any discussion about making HPD the central training for the state, so all the counties and all of Shopo's officers are receiving really that level of training that HPD provides?
Thank you very much for the thoughtful questions. And I want to go to Nick, if you wouldn't mind. Nick?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for calling. With regards to your question about centralized training, I think you bring up an interesting point that we at Shopo have actually been talking about for the last few months prior to the situation that happened in Memphis. We have been thinking about centralizing policies, certain types of policies throughout all 4 counties. Ideally, we theorize that it might be easier for us and for the departments to have one use of force policy rather than 4 different use of force policies. One crime scene management policy versus 4 different crime scene management policies. One centralized, unified duty to intervene type policy rather than 4 different interpretations of it. From my point of view as the chapter chair, it makes sense for 2 reasons. One, it's easier for us as advocates to just have one guideline to go with rather than 4 different ones. And I think it would also be easier for the 4 counties, for the individual departments to be able to investigate internally issues like this, what happened in Memphis, and also try and do things better that way. So is it going to happen? It's a lot of work, but were we talking about it prior to this situation? Yeah, actually we were.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Nick. Mark, Steve, before. All right. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, one thing, I think what it's not going to get to Memphis over here because I think we have enough supervision on scene. But that's one thing I think the department can do as far as let's face it, supervision is key to a lot of this stuff. A lot. You need supervisors on scene to control things, and I think the department needs to take a look and say, hey, we need to fill all the supervisors. You know, if it's going to cost you money for overtime to bring supervisors in, you got to bring them in. You know, you can't say, oh, a sergeant's going to take 2 or 3 sectors today. You're going to spread them out too thin. And I've seen it. I've seen that happen. And, you know, so going to be liability on the department, liability on the officers. So I think one thing the department could look at is you got to fill the supervisors. You know, supervision is so key out there to stop this.
Appreciate that, and thank you very much for the call, Kirk. We're going to go to Terrence, and I think it's 7:55. Terrence, my goodness, how you doing, Terrence?
I am great, man. How you doing? Long time no talk.
Man, it has been ages, bro. I'm glad you're doing well.
Yeah, doing well. I'm living in North Carolina and loving it.
Oh,
but I wanted to say that from what I'm seeing and from what I saw in this story, it all strikes me as something familiar. It's the same thing you see with a lot of these kids that grow up without fathers and they get into these gangs. And individually, they may seem, you know, normal or even, you know, timid. But you always see these stories about them feeling disrespected, and they always seem to overreact because they don't have any control of their emotions and how to regulate their emotions, and that's what controls them. And I think that when this situation happened, they felt disrespected, and they felt like okay, this guy is disrespecting us, and they just lost control. And I think they were probably even enjoying it. You know, from listening to what they were saying, you know, during and afterwards, it was almost like they were enjoying it. It was like they were in a gang taking out their, you know, anger on one of their rivals. And I don't know anything about these gentlemen. I don't know if they grew up without fathers or not, but that clearly looks like what I see. And the fact that none of them could actually see the danger of what they were doing and couldn't say to the others, hey, that's enough, back off. That's what a man would do, you know, in their right mind. But what I saw right out there that day was a bunch of thugs, wreaking havoc. And it's a shame.
Brother, I got to roll because we're running out of time. Please call us again. Love hearing your voice. Sorry we lost you to North Carolina. That was Terrence. Gentlemen?
I'm going to agree with a lot of what he just said. But we're supposed to be police professionals, and in that case, those officers, they lost control of their emotions. I stand with him on his point. I think fatherless homes are a problem. I think that again, we're going to go down a little bit off topic here, but everything starts in the home. And if you can't expect one parent to do it all, the whole concept is it takes a village. So when the caller, who I wish we had more time to talk with, alludes to the fact that there's a societal breakdown happening and that there's a breakdown within the family and a breakdown with a home, that's absolutely going to have an effect. Now, those officers were hired by Memphis PD, allegedly probably passed a psychological evaluation. Again, this goes back to how did these 5 guys get hired? Did they pass the appropriate things? And we could have a dialogue on that. But I agree with a lot of what our caller in North Carolina stated.
And that would be Terrence. I just
yeah.
want to tag out from my side of this, the desk here, is that what transpired and what happened, ecumenically a rejection of the actions of the officers. But I would like to give the other side that for a period of time, not that long ago, there were blatant assassinations of police and law enforcement officers who were merely sitting in their vehicle or whatever, benign situations. They were overtly targeted simply because they had a badge. And we have to understand that from the perspective of police officers, that cannot not be part of the preparation of your day. And you keep that with you. I'm not commenting on these 5 because I think they're absolutely the difference and not the norm. So please consider both sides of every story when they emerge. I want to thank you, Brother Nick. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Brother Steve, man in the middle.
Rick, is always happy and grateful to be here with you. Looking forward to next week.
I am too. And Brother Mark, you can grab Brother Steve's microphonal type of thing.
Good to see you there, Rick. See you next week.
There we have it. Next week it is.